this be one of the best moments of your life? You're listening to the Business Mirror Podcast for a broader look on business with Senior Editor Dennis Estopase.
Good day. Welcome to the Business Mirror BM Broader Look Podcast. Today's podcast tackles how the COVID-19 pandemic and the actions of various states threaten to sink global shipping business and the livelihood of seafarers. The story, titled Seafarers, Ships Sound Sirens, Seek Solutions, was written for the Business Mirror from Adelaide, Australia, by Jeremiah Opiñano of the OFW Journalism Consortium. The contributed story was published in the Broader Look section of the Business Mirror newspaper on July 30, 2020. For the full text version online, please go to www.businessmirror.com.ph and search for Broader Look. For the print version, please read the Business Mirror newspaper. Let's get on with the story. Never has Jose Braganza relished a regal form of solitude within the 39 square meter Princess Suite. 7 pieces of down pillows sit on a king-size bed, which is surrounded by a 55-inch television set, a leather sofa, a 5 cubic inch refrigerator, and an executive table. Food is served daily by the concierge. Behind sliding doors is an 8 square meter balcony with wooden flooring, 2 chairs, and a small table, all caressed by a sea breeze. The suite is like a first-class hotel room, according to Braganza, and that room is not even the most expensive, he added. It was the first time in Braganza's 9 years as housekeeping staff for a cruise line that he tasted this kind of luxury. If cruising for a 40-day journey from Tokyo to Melbourne, use of the suite would cost nearly $6,000 or more than $250,000 pesos per person. If it's a 20-day voyage from New Zealand to Tasmania, Australia and back, it would set one back just above $7,000 or nearly 350,000 pesos. After days of temporary opulence, Braganza saw another reason for exhilaration: the mouth of Manila Bay from afar. The Filipino seafarer was coming home. However, the Bermuda registered ship became dead in the water. The same with 30 other cruise ships. The same with Filipino crew on those ships and Braganzas. These vessels are all on beam ends. The Princess Suite was where Braganza's world got docked. Like the other 500 Filipino crew who sailed with him from Brisbane last April 7, all Braganza did was watch television, make audio and video calls on his mobile phone, play video games, and wait. And wait they did. The release of a swab test result prolonged his melancholy inside his opulent prison. That was until Braganza finally boarded a tender boat of the Philippine Coast Guard last May 28. After 54 days, he had finally set foot on dry land at Manila's International Seaport. Braganza is now home in Mandaluyong City. Free from his previous chamber, Braganza now enjoys driving but is hyper-vigilant behind a face mask. On dry land, the seaman is toiling for another day, earning from delivering food outside doors of office suites. Across seas, seafarers, their ships, and the global cruise ship industry are manning panic stations like never before. COVID-19 continues to hammer the well-being and economic future of more than 400,000 Filipino seafarers in one of the most dramatic episodes on Filipino international labor migration. With fears of viral transmission, crew change has become slow on open seaports, like what Braganza, his ship, and 30 other ships experienced in Manila Bay. But many international seaports remain shut. Seafarers got stranded while their ships continually drift at sea, with some ships reportedly even abandoned. Seafarers whose contracts have expired were either paid or not after global health authorities declared a pandemic. Bringing these crew home isn't immediate, as seaports remain barred for crew changes, and many airports stayed closed for outgoing and incoming international flights. the lockdowns against the COVID-19 pandemic has turned into a formidable challenge to an industry that has survived the 2016 financial crisis, pirate attacks, and outbreaks of a norovirus. Likewise, Professor Rolando Talampas of the University of the Philippines Asian Center said, "The economic prospects for the shipping industry are all at sea due to uncertainties in seaborne world trade." Braganza's vessel didn't have a confirmed COVID-19 case, be it a crew member or a passenger. The same cannot be said for 43 cruise lines. Cruise Mapper, an artificial intelligence website that tracks cruise ships, recorded some 3,069 crew and passengers positive with COVID-19 from January to May. Cruise ships present a unique environment for transmission of human-to-human infections, epidemiologist Joaquim Rocklov, Henrik Heldin, and Agnes Wilder-Smith wrote in their paper on the Diamond Princess for the Journal of Travel Medicine. The cases of COVID-19 infection prompted the Cruise Lines International Association to announce last March 13 a 30-day voluntary suspension of cruise operations in the United States. 4 days later, the United States Center for Disease Control released a Level 3 warning to defer all cruise travel worldwide. By May, COVID-19 cases broke out in 43 of the world's 272 cruise ships. And Filipinos, the world's largest supplier or merchant marine fleet, especially among ratings and non-marine workers, dominate crew counts. These cases amply demonstrate how a disease outbreak on board could threaten so many people at once and could be mishandled by people untrained to address such emergencies, Talampas said. Seafaring is a mentally challenging job by default, as one stays on a ship surrounded by a wet desert. But the pandemic sowed intense pressure and mental and physical fatigue onto many seafarers, according to Edwin de la Cruz of the non-profit International Seafarers Action Center Philippines Foundation. The Christian-run Mission to Seafarers releases a quarterly survey called the Seafarers Happiness Index. In the Seafarers Happiness Index 2020 first quarter report, anchored on COVID-19, seafarers told Mission to Seafarers that not enough efforts are being done to ensure crew and passenger safety on board. Seafarer respondents to the online SHI survey felt physically exhausted, mentally disturbed, homesick, and anxious. Commonplace trends prior to the pandemic prevailed, such as paid or unpaid work beyond the crew member's contract period, especially since crew changes get constricted by port closures. While majority of seafarers' vessels were safe from the virus, the problem is the fear of people coming aboard from ashore. In every port, the officers and crew are exposed in infection, be it from health department, surveyor, shore crew, pilot agent, or anyone ashore, the Seafarers Happiness Index 2020 report said. The overall average happiness score for that period was 6.30 out of 10, the lowest since the 6.25 average during the fourth quarter of 2017. Dimensions, such as welfare facilities at shore, workload, and shore leave, posted the lowest average scores that period. Since port states understandably focus on the health needs of their nationals, seafarers do not seem to be prioritized, and these merchant marine fleet feel they were cut adrift from the medical and emotional support they need, Mission to Seafarers noted. The organization added, ironically, this makes seafarers feel even more vulnerable and susceptible to the virus. The world seems to be shrinking for the shipping industry and its 1.6 million seafarers. Numerous cruise lines have announced postponements to resuming operations. That is assuming demand to board these cruise lines gets revived, since incomes in the developed world got wrecked by the pandemic. Maritime lawyer Edwin de la Cruz believes the post-pandemic scenario will pose problems for 80% of the world's ships that are called flags of convenience. These flags of convenience are registered in other countries with open registries for foreign vessels, not in the residence country of their owners. According to De La Cruz, these flags of convenience will not be prioritized in the post-COVID rehabilitation of the world economy, since these ships do not pay taxes in the country of beneficial ownership. Meanwhile, Professor Rolando Talampas thinks robotics and artificial intelligence will soon mark logistics operations as a means to cut costs. Even if sizable investments are needed to buy these technologies, adoption to Industrial Revolution 4.0 in global shipping will lead to investments that are much less on seafarers, Talampas said. Talampas added that adjustments here will be the need for maritime fleet as shore workers, but not as fleet crew. Filipino seafarers were mostly made up of ratings, according to a 2006 data from the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. But 11 years later, there are now more seafarers doing non-marine jobs over ratings given the growth of the cruise ship industry. And officers dwarf in numbers, even with continued demand for these ship officers. The pandemic has also exposed the usual problems of seafarers like contractualization, according to De La Cruz. But as the pandemic drags on, the shipping industry's players are hand over fist to speedily bounce back, leading up to the so-called new normal. Mornings at 4 are the new normal for Braganza and wife Grace. Some 25 to 30 styro packs fill the Braganza's dining table. The kitchen is up and running. Cooking tapsilog and tosilog meals have been breaking Braganza's morning solitude since mid-June. The packed meals are for the office mates of Grace and for a nearby office, both in Pasay City. Profit is huge, quote-unquote, for a day. The range is from 1,625 pesos, about $33, to 2,250 pesos, or nearly $46. A pack's breakfast costs 65 pesos to 75 pesos, or nearly $2. When cooking is finished and Grace completes her breakfast, Braganza steers the wheel to bring his wife and the packed meals to her workplace. A sister in Real Quezon also delivers crabs, shrimps, and lapu-lapu to Braganza. He sells these via mobile and online orders. Braganza said repatriated seafarers have to think of how to earn nowadays. Of course, he's still awaiting a call from his cruise company. Many Filipino seafarers are also waiting for those next calls to sail past this pandemic. They and their vessels and ship owners continue to sound sirens across seas, seeking immediate solutions while riding out the waves of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 33-year-old Braganza said if he would not remain resilient, he would jump ship.
Thank you for listening to the Business Mirror podcast. For a broader look on business, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Business Mirror. Until next time.